Bonjour, hello. Nous sommes très heureux de vous accueillir à notre troisième nuit des droits sociaux globaux. Durant 24 heures, nous allons échanger autour de la Déclaration universelle des droits humains, écrite en 1948. Donc, nous parlons à l'occasion du 75e anniversaire de sa rédaction. Il faut dire que nous nous trouvons à une époque malheureusement diamétralement inverse de celle de la libération après-guerre, 48, de la reconquête du respect humain et de ses droits, de la lutte aussi contre les fascismes, racismes et autres nationalismes. Nous sommes donc heureux de démarrer ce tour du monde par la présentation de ce programme et je laisse la parole à Vera.
So we are very happy to welcome here today to the first night of Global Social Rights very happy to do this event together with the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation. We are here now in Paris. Later you will hear all the studios who take part of this global event. We are here because of the celebration of the Human Rights Convention, which was written in 75 years ago, and which was a milestone in human rights. And we will, during this night, discuss the necessities to add new paragraphs to reflect on what has been written. It's still a very important document, and it's almost a monument for human rights. And that's what we want to discuss in this moment, which was by the UN High Commissioner said is a very dark moment. And we have across the globe different levels of violent conflicts not seen since 1945. But what is this even brings the Human Rights Convention in forefront because you have to celebrate what is in danger, to stabilize it, and to reclaim respect on it. So we are happy to be here with you tonight, and we will introduce you to the program in 1 second. But before, I will hand over to Eva Wuchold to say some words from the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation.
Yes, hello, good evening here in Geneva, in our studio in Geneva. I'm very happy to welcome everyone to this third edition of the Global Social Rights Night. And for us, it's a very special edition because as Vera and Ruedi pointed out already, it is on the Universal Declaration on Human Rights and its meaning today. So because we have lots of studios this time, and my colleagues will explain from all kinds of angles what the program is about in a minute, I just want to make 4 points why we think the Human Rights Declaration that was declared 75 years ago is still relevant today. The first point is that the human rights set out in the declaration are, to our view, an important threshold against which we can test our arguments. Human rights are thoroughly political and should be subject to debate and argument, but they should also set the framework and tone for our most important political debates. The second point why we think they are relevant is that the rights set out in the declaration are a matter of political culture. A political culture that takes human rights seriously does not simply proclaim rights without clarifying, naming, or questioning the reasons for their value and the responsibility associated with them. A political culture that takes human rights seriously does therefore not label people as illegal per se and opposes any discrimination based on skin color, origin, gender, sexual orientation, ideology, class, or religion. The third point that I would like to make is that if we took the rights enshrined in the Declaration of Human Rights seriously, our debates would shift to a level where the inherent dignity of the human person and the respect for our common humanity, the centerpieces of the human rights vision, were a starting point for our public decisions and discussions, and not drowned in the noise. It would no longer be about fighting ideological battles or discrediting human rights as moral, liberal, or bourgeois. This does not mean that we ignore criticism of the Declaration of Human Rights or the human rights per se. However, I think that these criticisms should lead to discussions about how the promised inalienable human rights can be guaranteed, and not to a problematization of human rights per se. My last point that I would like to make with regard to the relevance of the declaration is that the signing of the Declaration of Human Rights 75 years ago is not and shouldn't be an event from the past to be remembered or a legacy to be preserved. Rather, as Samuel Moyn writes in The Last Utopia, it should be an inspiration that helps us to overcome challenges we face in trying to create a better world. And we don't know that if we declared the rights inadequate, whether another utopia would emerge in the future or not. So I would like to, or I hope that that these coming 24 hours will lead to discussions which take the human rights as what they should be and what they think what they are, at least at this particular moment, a chance for a last utopia, and I think also a starting point for debates on how to improve the situation that Vera described at the very beginning, a situation that we live in that is full of challenges, that is full of violence, and that does not respect the human rights. So I'm very happy to hand over to Nadja now, who will explain further what the Rosa Luxemburg Stiftung in Berlin is thinking about this.
Thank you very much, Eva. Yeah, thank you very much also for giving me the opportunity to welcome all of you on behalf of Rosa Luxemburg Stiftung to the third night of Global Social Rights, which, as we already heard and as you already know, is dedicated to the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. First of all, I would, of course, like to thank my colleagues from Geneva and Berlin, as well as our partners from Civic City, for organizing such an impressive event. And I wish to extend my thanks especially to all the colleagues of RLS, the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation offices worldwide, who kind of contribute to this event with an inspiring set of sessions, with different perspectives, and I think this will enrich this global format. The Rosa Luxemburg Stiftung is an internationally operating organization committed to civic education, to political analysis, to international dialogue. And at the core of our work stands the struggle for a more just and peaceful world. With our work, we want to contribute to a world in which people are not discriminated against on the basis of their origin, race, gender, religion, sexuality, or class. But in addition to individual civil rights, we also focus on economic, social, and cultural rights, and we work worldwide with a wide range of activists, trade unionists, indigenous peoples, climate activists, feminist organizations, and, for example, agricultural or farm workers, and somehow try to support in solidarity their projects for a just society. So we think 75 years after the international community adopted the Declaration of Human Rights, it is its full kind of implementation or compliance is unfortunately still an unfulfilled promise. promise, sorry. Human rights are being violated all over the world, and human rights defenders have to fear for their lives in many places. We are facing wars, we are observing a strengthening of authoritarian tendencies, and also here in Germany and in Europe, we are seeing that people's rights are not being respected. Actually, I'm not in Germany at this point of time, and I'm at the climate negotiations here in Dubai, but I'm speaking on behalf of the German Rosa Luxemburg Foundation. So this year, for example, Germany has been on the list of countries where freedom of expression and freedom of assembly are listed as being under threat. We face structural racism in the police and amongst authorities in Germany. Every second Black person in Germany experiences racism. Every third day, a woman dies because of domestic violence in Germany, and climate activism is being criminalized. We see politicians and activists being insulted in a sexist way, and for example, also German companies violate human rights worldwide. So also in this sense, for an organization that has its origin in Germany, looking at the 75th anniversary of human rights is very crucial. In this sense, I think we learn from history, and that's also what Eva said, that the struggle for human rights is an ongoing and continuous process. It is not something that we should preserve as historical memory. The vision for a society in which human rights apply equally to all remains a living but as yet unachieved goal. And despite the fact that the declaration is not binding, the Declaration of Human Rights provides us a crucial guide for the promotion of a just and free society in which the dignity and freedom of every human being is protected. And in this sense, I think this must also be the guiding principle for our work as well as the Luxemburg Foundation. And with this in mind, I'm again really delighted that we are dedicating the next 24 hours to this important anniversary with a really exciting and important program with a lot of interesting discussions and perspectives. And again, thank you very much for organizing this, and thank you very much for being with us. And I hand over to, I don't know, sorry.
This 24 hours, one of the principles of this 24 hours is that we use different language. So I switch again in French, but ich könnte auch auf Deutsch und könnte auch auf Italienisch, aber I will make echo of what you say, which is very important, and we feel it also in different other countries. En France, notre président commence à utiliser le mot confinement, confinement qui a été utilisé pendant le temps du Covid, est utilisé aujourd'hui pour que les enfants soient informés sur les questions de terrorisme. On l'utilise aujourd'hui même, on l'évoque au niveau des Jeux Olympiques, c'est-à-dire il est possible que les Parisiens soient confinés pendant les Jeux Olympiques. Vous imaginez ça? On est dans quel rapport de liberté? Mais le sujet de cette petite séance nouvelle est celui de se souvenir peut-être les deux premières 24 heures que nous avons fait il y a en 2020 puis en 2021. La première de nos nuits de Global Social Work était vraiment à la suite de ce confinement, donc était dans ce spirit que nous
the lockdowns. So that was in that spirit that we held this first night.
Nous avons perdu un peu cette possibilité d'échanger au niveau mondial, et ce qui nous paraissait vraiment important à ce moment-là, c'est comment recommencer à parler ensemble à un niveau mondial et commencer à s'intéresser à des choses qui se passent aux quatre coins du monde plutôt que uniquement à ce qui se passe dans nos chambres. La deuxième séance, a été consacrée à l'esclavage contemporain. Et là aussi, nous avons fait un tour du monde extrêmement intéressant de cas, de lutte. Je crois que c'est ce qui peut-être particularise toujours nos 24 heures, c'est qu'on laisse parler des personnes qui sont véritablement dans des situations de lutte et très isolées et aussi des politiques, des personnes qui pensent ces choses-là, des philosophes. Et donc, je crois que la discussion que nous allons mener durant ces 24 prochaines heures relève un peu de la même chose. C'est-à-dire nous aurons à la fois des militants, nous aurons des personnalités plus politiques qui luttent au niveau des organisations internationales et nationales, et puis nous aurons aussi des chercheurs, des personnes qui essayent d'étudier ou de rendre intelligibles, de rendre visibles des évolutions importantes par rapport à cette situation des droits humains.
So, yeah, we welcome you. So I take the English part here in Paris in the memory also of the first 2 nights which we organized on one hand, to reconnect the different struggles around the world, on global social rights. And the first one was really about these social rights and international solidarity. And what was very important that we said we have to share our different instruments, our different thoughts on fights of global rights, but also different formats. A little initiative of 2 people who are fighting for women rights, for migrant rights, for example, is as important as a big organization. And how can we give visibility to this kind of movement which is going around the world and which often doesn't have a global representation? And that was the motivation of the first night, and so many people followed us that we said we have to continue, and we started a second night on the topic of modern slavery and neocolonialism. This was on 22, and with different studios, and also connected to the Global Social Forum in Mexico. We are really happy that the next night, which we are facing now, even more studios are taking part, and we will hear in 1 minute a little bit more about this, about these different actors, and when they starting to present the program, because these studios took care of special hours, and with them we are able to make really a way around the world. When we start to speak about this movement of global social rights and human rights, it's sure that in 24 hours we can have 80 participants who have the right to speak, but a lot of discourses won't be able to be present tonight. And but the idea is to continue. And we add another element, which is a website which we created on human rights. And you will see it in 1 minute when we share the screen. And this is a beginning of a collective archive to annotate, to reflect on the existing human rights convention, but to enlarge, to bring other conventions inside of it, to bring behind the terms which have been used, like freedom, like solidarity, that we bring behind different definitions. We started with some official definitions like we find in Oxford Dictionary, but now we need you all, the community around and those who are in the struggles and fights, to enrich this text, to question it, and to bring new topics inside of it, because to quote Rosa Luxemburg, what is the most important is that the freedom is always the freedom of the dissenters, which means that of those who are not maybe the same opinion start to speak and have the right to speak, and that's what we want to applicate tonight. And with this, I hand over to Carola, who will speak and introduce to the program of this night.
Thank you so much, Vera, Ruedi, also Nadja and Eva for introducing the whole event. I have the pleasure now, to introduce the program to you. And my name is Carola Franz, and I'm also working with Rosa Luxemburg Stiftung based in Berlin. But I have so many colleagues from all over the world, from our different offices, and together with their partners, we bring in so many different perspectives and dimensions of human rights to this huge 24 hours event. So I'm really proud to present this now. And Vera just mentioned the website. On that website, you will also find the whole program. All the times of the program are mentioned in coordinated universal time. Of course, it's a bit difficult for all of us because we will be traveling all around the world, so to say, and we will travel through different time zones and regions. So this means the timing, of course, everywhere is a different one. But stick to this UTC time, the coordinated universal time. You can easily transfer it to your local time. So I will now go in a chronological order through the whole program and ask the moderators to present very briefly their sections, their topics of the whole program. And we will start on the globe here in Europe, in Paris, because when that will be then at from 6 to 11 p.m. coordinated universal time when we start in Paris with a studio in Paris, and I think also live guests. But we will hear more about these 5 hours from Paris directly, again from Ruedi and Vera.
Yeah, so we are really happy that we can start the first segment on the role of UNESCO for the place of struggle for human rights and the important role of culture in protecting human rights. And we will start with Dudu Dien, who is one of the key figures in the history of UNESCO and this fight, also known as UN reporter, and for the very important work on the question on giving light to the history of slavery. We will go on with Sima Simar, who's the Foreign Minister of Women's Affairs of Afghanistan and also UN Commissioner in Darfur. Then we go to with Gustav Messier, who's the co-founder of ATTAC France, but also an economist. And then we go with Lucy Daniel to the question of Ikipop and to the question of women's rights and ecological rights. After this introduction hour, we come to another topic. You want to?
Yeah, I can present it. The second hour will be about human rights, visual representation, and analysis. In this moment, we will have this very, very good and famous publisher Lars Müller, who wrote many books about human rights. Then Hervé Matin, who is co-founder of the coordination of Poster for Tomorrow and who worked a long time about posters, how can we create images and other elements in different struggles, but also in global topics. And to end this hour, the famous journalist of Mediapart, the founder of Mediapart, Edwy Plenel, who has in French a very important position because he's one of the most important free journalists who can speak about topics who many other journalists in the moment, because the press is not so free, can bring into discussion.
And then we come to the question of human rights, habitat and urbanism, with a section with Miguel Robespierre on the right to the city, and from New York, and Rosa Blanche from Barcelona. So it's all the questions about right to the city, to the question of housing and access to resources of the city. And then we go to the next part with Hubert Klumpner and Michael Walczak, Zurich and Sarajevo, about sustainable cities and communities and access to resources. After this section, we go...
I will present it. We will speak about prison, because I think it's one of the very important way to look at human rights is to look what happened in the prison. When in the prison you don't have human rights, you don't have it also in the society. We will have 2 persons of the prison insiders, Florence Laufer, who is in the moment the director of the organization, and Bernard Bolz, who is the founder and president of this organization. Then we will go a little bit on the everyday struggles and opinion in Paris. Capucine Legel, journalist, who will speak in the same time about little association like Democracy, who try in Paris to introduce new way of looking the democracy and the human right, with a position who is very important, I think.
And then we have Zoe Alosi, who's teacher on the Global Campus of Human Rights in Venice, but she's located in Thessaloniki, and also as a jurist, philosopher, and advocate, activist fighting for social rights. And then we come to our last segment, which is here in Paris, which is on other relevant places of struggles for human rights. And this is with Bonnie Eva Baur, who's in Hamilton, who is a rapporteur of the United Nations and on mechanisms on the right of to development. And then we go to South America, where we go to Medellin and Bogota, so Colombia. This will be with our colleague Esteban Gonzalez, and this is with Alejandro Gomez Restrepo from Colombia Diversa and Carlos Ortiz on the question of unit for land restitution in Colombia. And we will finish with Annabella Rosenberg, who is on the Just Transition Climate Action Network from Bahia Blanca. So this will be our hours, and I give over to the next segment in New York.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vera. Thank you. You just had a very important say, and that's it. I mean, the moderation, of course, of all the offices is at a certain place, but our idea is to have it as an interregional format. So it might be that we moderate from, for instance, Paris, but then we have speakers from another part of the world. And we will see this also for other cities. So if the other moderators are now presenting their sections, please also mention maybe if there is something special, an interregional perspective or anything else. So yeah, as you said, we are then afterwards moving to our studio in New York. And I asked my colleague Julian from the Rosa Luxemburg New York office to present their 5 hours, which will be local time 5 to 7 5 to 7 p.m. And right now it's noon, or almost noon in New York. So hello, Julian. Can you
Hi,
tell
yes.
us more?
Yes, for sure. Apologies if I'm a little stuffy, but yeah, I think we're going from 5 to actually 10 p.m. So 5 hours of hopefully some great conversations around a number of different human rights. So we're going to kick it off with one of our partners, Sia Weaver, from a great organization called Housing Justice for All. I think it really encapsulates what we're looking for when we talk about housing rights and making sure that everybody has a place to live. So that conversation is going to take place again about 5 p.m. New York time. And I think this is going to be a good conversation to really kick us off in talking about who is providing these rights. I think a common theme throughout all of the conversations will be that oftentimes it's us people who have to fight for our own rights and oftentimes even provide them for ourselves because the state is not going to be the one actually providing them. So we're going to kick it off with Sia Weaver and discussing the housing justice movement and tenants' rights movements on the rights of housing. And we're going to move to researcher Anna Rebri at 6 p.m. New York time to discuss the women's movements in Rojava. So again, we're in New York. She's based in New York, but she's spent a lot of time in Syria and Turkey as well. So we're going to have a conversation about the different women's movements within the Rojava Revolution and how women have to basically provide their own rights and organize amongst themselves to keep each other safe and provide for themselves. But Anya also has a lot of experience with the Zapatistas in the Zapatista movement in Mexico. So it's going to be a really interesting conversation because it should shift into the indigenous rights movements and how indigenous people in Mexico are organizing for their rights. But then at 8 p.m., we're actually going to shift back to New York City with the Kurdish Cultural Center and our partner, Shael Kurto. So she's going to speak about the different cultural movements within the Kurdish communities and how her organization at the Kurdish Cultural Center keeps these all organized and together. And then we're going to finally wrap up with a conversation on labor rights and workers' rights around the world with some really awesome researchers and journalists, Daria Azzolini, Michelle Chen, and Alex Press, to discuss the different labor movements. We've had a lot of big wins here in New York City, but also hopefully globally that we can discuss and give a sort of holistic picture on the workers' rights movements around the world. So we're also going to have a little bit of a cultural element included with our songs of slavery and emancipation. So a nice musical element that will play throughout and intermittently throughout the different conversations. So we're really looking forward to it, and I'll pass it back to you, Carola.
Thanks a lot, Julian. That sounds really interesting. It will be wonderful. So thank you. After these 5 hours from the studio in New York office, we will go further along the globe to our moderators from Manila office. So I'm very happy to have Richmond here, who is together with my other colleague Ai, then later on moderating the session from Manila. Hello, Richmond. It's already very, very late. I think it's after midnight already, December 10th at your local time. Thank you so much for being here with us and still. So could you please shortly present what are your plans?
Thank you so much, Carola. Mabuhay from Manila, Philippines. It's already midnight here, and we invite you to attend RLS Manila's time. It's the 12th hour discussion of the night for global social rights. We are discussing the experiences of the human rights defenders here in the Philippines. Nestled in the heart of Southeast Asia, the Philippines boasts a rich history as one of the oldest democracies in the region. However, this history is a tapestry woven with the threads of resilience, activism, and challenges that has shaped the journey of our human rights defenders throughout the years. Our narrative unfolds against the backdrop of a nation that has weathered the storm of history, notably a dark period of martial law. We have war on drugs, and recently we just passed an anti-terror law. So human rights defenders find themselves navigating a landscape where their work is not only crucial but also increasingly challenging in the face of evolving legislation. I would say that the culture of impunity is alive and thriving in the Philippines. In fact, as of June 30th this year, our colleague from Karapatan Alliance Philippines, a collective human rights non-government organization here in the country, reported that there are at least 778 political prisoners in the Philippines, and 157 of which are women. 77 are elderly, 95 are sickly, and 17 are peace consultants. In this symphony of struggles and resilience, human rights defenders in the Philippines stand as beacon of hope, embodying the spirit of democracy and advocating for the rights and dignity of all citizens. So join us in our discussion as we explore the risks, the gains, and the insights of our two invited human rights defenders, Ms. Cristina Palabay, the Secretary General of Karapatan Alliance Philippines, a recipient of 2021 Franco Herman Prize for Human Rights, and Ms. Cecil Obanda Paces, a former political prisoner during martial law years and now the founder of Voice of the Free, an NGO working against human trafficking and slavery, also a recipient of during 2005 of Anti-Slavery Award from the Anti-Slavery International Commission, and the first Iqbal Masih Award for the elimination of child labor. Let us engage in a thoughtful reflection of the intersections of history, democracy, and the ongoing commitment to protect and uphold human rights in the Philippines as we celebrate the 75th year of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Thank you so much, Carola. I turn this back to you.
Thanks so much for so late at night presenting you what your plans are for your segment. That will be a tough session, I think. Yeah, but we're talking about human rights, and human rights are a difficult issue. So this will be actually the case for almost all the offices. We will afterwards go to our office in Almaty, which takes care of the whole region of Central Asia. And we have a very interesting approach there. Marlies, may I ask you to present what you are planning to present during your segment?
Thank you very much, Carola. Good evening from Almaty in Kazakhstan in Central Asia. I am Marlies Linke, the head of the Central Asia office of the Rosa Luxemburg Stiftung. Our office is placing the situation of people with disabilities at the center of its contribution to the third night of global social rights. People with disabilities often find themselves seen not as full members of their communities. They face difficulties in realizing their human rights. In all countries of Central Asia, committed people are working to improving the situation of people with disabilities. They address different issues and groups of people, but often they face similar challenges. As part of the third night of global social rights, the Central Asia office of the Rosa Luxemburg Stiftung, together with our interview partners, Sahira Begalieva, director of the public foundation I Teach Me Competence Development Center in Almaty, Ulan Inkarbekov, chairman of the Almaty City Association of Persons with Disabilities, and Asudullah Tsikri Khodoyev, chairman of the National Association of Persons with Disabilities of Tajikistan, stressed that the catalogue of universal human rights has been further developed since its declaration 75 years ago. We take December the 3rd, the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, as an opportunity to draw attention to the fact that the full and complete realization of the human rights of all persons with disabilities is an inalienable, integral, and indivisible part of all human rights and fundamental freedoms. A key document for the work in this field, also in the countries of Central Asia, is the International Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Our office sees this as a contribution to the development of socially just and inclusive societies in Central Asia. In their work, our interview partners stand for those people in all countries of our region who use their expertise, experience, and energy to solve the very practical daily problems of people with disabilities, and in doing so, change attitudes and policies in relation to people with disabilities so that they can develop their potential and actively participate in life.
Thank you so much, Marlies. I think it is also important to say that your interview will also be accessible in Russian language. I think in the chat, once the segment will start, in the chat, we will post a link where you can upload the video also in Russian.
Thank you very much for reminding of that. We, due to technical questions, decided to pre-record the interview just in case we have problems with the internet. We have made sure that we anyhow will be visible and the points that we want to make can be followed. Thank you very much, Carola. And I also would like to say thank you for the technical support that we got from everybody who was involved in preparing the process.
Thanks a lot, Marlies, for your presentation. So after we leave then again Almaty office, so the Central Asian region, tomorrow we will go to Dubai, where right now the climate negotiations are going on. And you already heard my colleague Nadja, who is there at the moment. So she will be one of the people also being in the discussion tomorrow. So Nadja, can you tell us more? What are your plans? I think it's breakfast time in Dubai, huh? When we come to your place.
Yes, thank you very much, Carola. I guess it is 9 a.m. And we will broadcast from the breakfast room. Actually, we found a quiet spot, luckily. And that's going to be my colleagues, Tetet Lauron from the Philippines. That's going to be my colleague, Carola Vasquez from Mexico. Actually, that's a surprise, but we convinced her today to join us tomorrow morning. That's my colleague, David Williams from New York, and myself. And we will update everybody who's with us tomorrow morning about the climate negotiations, where they're standing at and what's at stake, why we're here, and so on. But of course, we will not bother you with technical negotiation language, or maybe just a little bit. I think we will also highlight what actually climate change has to do with human rights and why climate justice is a fight for social rights, why climate justice is a fight for social justice, why climate justice is a fight against colonialism and colonial legacies, and what all of this has to do with human rights. So I hope, that we'll have quite some folks joining us and, discussing or seeing together with us what human rights and climate change bring along.
Thanks a lot, Nadja. Oh, this will be very interesting, and I think people are also interested to hear, really news from the COP from insiders there. So thanks a lot. That will be very good. Afterwards, it will be 11:30 in Delhi, at Delhi office, and we will have a very, very interesting segment from Delhi, because it is my colleague Tokia moderating, but it will be a very interregional perspective and also a lot of speakers. And that's why we thought it's worth giving so many speakers a bit more time. So there will be a 90-minute slot. Tokia, can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, Carola, good evening and good morning and good afternoon, wherever people are there. It's a great pleasure for us to be part of this Nights of the Global Social Rights, which is very, very imminent to also celebrate the UN Declaration of Human Rights at the time of the global, turbulent toward the social justice and particularly the human rights. So I'm coming directly to the questions what we are dealing tomorrow around 11:30 Indian time and 7 a.m. Central European time. We will be talking, what is happening around community discriminated on work and descent. And so, Carola, you rightly said we are not going to confine in only Asia or South Asia. We are going to touch global phenomena of the community who was discriminated based on work and descent, and this is the globally very large number of the community. As per as UN data, there are 270 million people are identified with this kind of the discrimination. And if we go further, these community are facing generational discrimination, prejudice through the principle of the purity and coalition, and a different kind of the discrimination in globally in the other part of the world, somewhere in the caste, somewhere in the race, somewhere in the religion. So there are double or triple discrimination to people who are coming from the different gender, women or the transgender people. So we are very, very lucky to have 4 eminent, panelists coming from different part of the world. Our partner, our friend Paul Diwakar, who is very much linked to the global discourse, and particularly he is engaging day and night with the UN framework through his own network, which is called Global Forum of the Community Discriminated on Work and Descent. So he is kind of leading role in this panel. Along with that, we have Prabhu Satyani. He is from the Pakistan, and he is also the right expert, and he is very closely working in and around Asia. So he will be going to give us the perspective of what is happening of this community in Asia. We have one panelist from Slovakia. She is going to give us perspective, and her name is Anna Maria. She is going to give us perspective about European perspective, and also specifically about what is happening in her own country. Going further, we have one more panelist, Alima Tal. She is from Africa, Gambia. So she will going to give us perspective about DW community from Africa, and also specifically about the Gambia. We have not, any panelists from Latin America. Our, friend Paul Diwakar might also give some inputs about Latin America and how they are linking to the larger global social rights, and also how they are able to succeed in the UN framework of United Nations. I know how they have been working to realize their rights and dignity through various United Nations framework, and particularly UN Declaration of Human Rights. Over to you, Carola. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Tokia, for introducing this at a very late evening in your local time. I think it's almost 11 o'clock, huh? Or 10:30. Yeah. So thank you for that. I think this will be a very interesting panel because of this interregional perspective. And also the next panel will be very interregional. Then later on, we will go to our office in Johannesburg, where my colleague Siko Lutengo will be moderating a panel on business and human rights. And as Siko right now is not available, not at that moment now, I have the honor to present her her panel very shortly. So she will take the Total Energy as an example. This Total Energy is the French fossil fuel giant, and Total Energy is a key actor in both the Ugandan oil sector and the Mozambican oil sector. So also this segment will have a very interregional perspective, and they will try to understand the fossil fuel projects and also its impact on human and environmental rights in the context of just transition in both Uganda and Mozambique. And they will try, they will discuss the relationship between the home states of the company, or the home states where the company is actually busy, and the transnational companies and their home states. So they have a look at the supply chain laws, which are already existent, but also those who are still negotiated. So in France, there is already a supply chain law in place. So it's called the Corporate Duty of Diligence Law. So they will have a look at that, but also at the EU Corporate Due Diligence Directive and the UN Binding Treaty on Transnational Corporations on Human Rights, both of the latter, which are still being negotiated. And they try to have a look at impacts and opportunities, to better human rights, to also put pressure on these businesses, on these transnational corporations, and what they do actually in the countries. And so it will be a very global perspective here. And as we have 4 speakers from Uganda, it will be Dr. Dickens Kamushiga, who is from Uganda. He's the Chief Executive Officer of African Institute of Energy Governance. And then we also have 2 social activists and environmental activists from Mozambique. It's Kate Fumo and Erika Mendes. And then also from the perspective of France, we have Juliette Renaud, who is a senior campaigner on corporate accountability from Friends of the Earth. So I think this will be a very interesting panel too. Afterwards, we will have it's 6 hours. 6 hours being moderated from our Geneva office. So we will go from South Africa to Geneva. So we close the circle somehow. My colleague Jeanne right now is at the studio in Geneva. Jeanne, tell us more. What are your plans for these 6 hours?
Merci Carola. Je vais parler en français pour les interprètes. Donc pour les 7 dernières heures de ces 24 heures, nous serons effectivement ici à Genève, dans le studio que nous venons d'installer dans les locaux de l'Université ouvrière de Genève, en Suisse donc. Genève, c'est là où se trouve le Conseil des droits de l'homme, là où se trouve le siège du Haut Commissariat aux droits de l'homme, ainsi que de nombreuses autres institutions de l'ONU. Et c'est le cœur du droit international humanitaire depuis les conventions de Genève. Donc en fait, pendant les heures genevoises de cet événement, nous allons rencontrer plusieurs acteurs clés de ce qu'on appelle la Genève internationale, c'est-à-dire des personnes qui travaillent dans les institutions de l'ONU, qui sont syndicalistes, qui sont représentants d'organisations de la société civile ou qui sont universitaires, et qui ont tous un lien avec ce qui est discuté ici aux Nations Unies et ce qui est fait en termes de protection et de promotion des droits de l'homme. Donc, ils vont nous dire, elles et eux, ce que ça signifie de célébrer l'anniversaire de la Déclaration universelle des droits de l'homme, en particulier ici à Genève. Ils vont aussi nous expliquer comment, dans leur travail quotidien, ils participent à la promotion et à la protection des droits de l'homme. Donc, au cours des 6 heures avant la conclusion de notre événement, nous aurons donc un premier segment dont la discussion portera en particulier sur les droits économiques, sociaux et culturels et sur le droit au développement, avec la participation de Melik Ozden, qui est directeur du C-Team, une organisation basée depuis les années 70 à Genève, avec Christophe Gollet, qui est chercheur à la Geneva Academy, et avec Isabelle Durand, qui est présidente du groupe d'experts des Nations Unies sur le droit au développement. Ensuite, nous aurons une heure lors de laquelle nous évoquerons plus particulièrement les droits des travailleurs et des travailleuses, avec 2 syndicalistes qui sont basés dans des organisations syndicales internationales ici à Genève, Kirill Buketov de l'AUF et Baba Hay de Public Services International. Nous parlerons aussi du rôle de la culture en lien avec les droits de l'homme, avec les deux co-directrices éditoriales du Festival du film et Forum des droits humains de Genève, Laura Longobardi et Leila Alonso, et la directrice de l'association Chap Chap, Mélanie Rouquet. Nous aurons ensuite une heure lors de laquelle nous discuterons de l'enjeu du développement de nouveaux droits, des droits qui n'étaient pas évoqués dans la déclaration, et nous prendrons en fait 3 exemples. Celui des droits des populations autochtones, avec la participation de Antine Sond, qui travaille pour le Haut Commissariat aux droits de l'homme, ici à Genève. Deuxième exemple, celui des droits à la santé sexuelle et reproductive, avec Antea Taderera, qui travaille pour l'association Sexual Rights Initiative. Et enfin, troisième exemple, les droits des générations futures, avec Ana Maria Suarez Franco, de l'association FIAN International. Nous aurons également un segment sur les droits humains dans les conflits aux frontières et dans les cadres de migration. Lors de ce segment interviendront Elio Panese, qui est membre de l'équipe de recherche de l'association Border Forensic, Erika Harper, qui est responsable de la recherche et des études politiques pour la Geneva Academy, et également 2 autres personnes, Laura Van Weiss et Danesha Mosbalboni, qui toutes les 2 travaillent pour l'Institut sur les apatrides et l'inclusion. Et enfin, dernière intervenante de ce segment sur les conflits et les frontières, Jelena Aparak, qui est directrice des politiques de la recherche et du plaidoyer pour l'association Legal Action Worldwide. Enfin, nous aurons un autre segment un peu particulier qui portera sur le rôle des organisations de la société civile et des mouvements sociaux dans le contexte des Nations Unies, et de comment est-ce qu'on peut renforcer ce rôle des organisations de la société civile. Et pour ce segment, nous accueillerons Léa Kimber, qui est sociologue à l'Université de Genève, Nicoletta Zapile, qui est directrice des programmes pour une association qui s'appelle UPR Info, et Nicoletta Dentico, qui est coprésidente du Geneva Global Health Hub, réseau qui travaille sur les questions de santé. Voilà, merci d'être avec nous et je vous souhaite une très belle nuit des droits sociaux. À demain à Genève.
Merci à Genève et à toute l'équipe qui lutte pour les droits sociaux cette nuit avec les mots, avec leur engagement. Et c'était une très belle première heure qui donne envie de poursuivre. Et j'espère on va avoir des écouteurs aussi dans ce globe qui tourne. Carola a très bien tourné le monde dans ce sens-là.